Um, Again, today's webcast is presented by Bob Long, who's Nudesic's Healthcare Practice Manager, and Tom Cancer, Nudesic's Technical Architect focusing on the healthcare vertical. Both Bob and Tom are really sought after not only for industry engagements, but also for working with clients, obviously here internally as well to Nudesic, but also, again, definitely focusing on that healthcare vertical. And we're very excited to have them with us this morning. If you're logged on, you should be able to see the title slide for today's presentation, and that is the Nudesic homepage slide that has Nudesic as well as some of the awards that we've won previously. There was a brief intro earlier regarding using the features within Live's meeting. To quickly recap, we do encourage you to ask questions throughout the session. They will be held until the end. Please note, use the Q&A in the upper left toolbar. Type your question and click the Ask button. We also use the seating chart feature for feedback within Live meeting. That is found in the upper right toolbar, and if you're having difficulty with audio or you'd like the presenter to slow down, things of that nature, you will find that information using the feedback toolbar. Lastly, please note this is important too. This webcast is being recorded, and the recording will be made available to everybody after we have it available. We'll send that out probably, most likely within a week of the recording. If everybody is ready, please make sure your feedback choice is set to green, and we will begin our presentation. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Bob. Bob?
Thank you, Deanne. I appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for attending today. We're delighted to have you here and excited to speak to you about our solution, something that Tom and I have worked on for about a year, if you go all the way back to trace it to the beginnings. And so we'll jump right in. And the agenda will be a little bit on our company, in case you are not familiar with us. And then I want to speak to the fact that we work closely with Microsoft, both in terms of technology and also bringing a campaign and a solution like this to the market. And then we'll dive into the aspects of HIPAA 5010 and compliance from a standpoint of what are the guidance materials available, what resources do you have, and how you could engage with us if you wish to do so. And then we'll talk about some of the benefits of teaming in this effort. So firstly, just a quick background. We've put offices around the country in the last 9 years since our founding. Work with payers and providers also in the research field, biotech and pharma. And just until 2008, we actually were growing consistently at 100% a year. And then mention there of technology platform for integration. It's very important to us, and it's a core competency. And you'll not hear us speak too much about that today, other than what it delivers, what it brings to you in terms of wall-to-wall, enterprise-wide coordination of data. Now, a little background there, just for a second. These are various categories of clients as we see them in the healthcare fields, but quite a bit of experience accumulated over a number of years. Our consultants are very strong in this area, and Tom leads that pack. So, jumping into what we want to talk about, where is this real administrative simplification? So, HIPAA in its origins was all about getting things done more easily. If we adhere to standards, things will happen quickly, and we'll do implementations and so forth. But things have switched a little bit on us, and particularly in the last 10 to 12 months as the economy has dipped. And so trying to become compliant while dealing with lack of budget, and then the actual revenue flow that's impacted by all this. For example, we'll talk, I think, a fair amount about claims and just how they can be handled and remedied when they're finding difficulty getting through the system, and what that does, the effect that has on revenue cycles. And then end of the line, where's the benefit from a HIPAA implementation? So let's look at it from an operations view first. And of course, this can't be done with technology alone. I want to emphasize that. It's just a means to the end. And but what we want to concentrate on are improved processes. So Tom, when he demos, will show you a claim denial and how easy that type of system can be there to assist you and improve the collections, for example, by expediting through the system. And then I mentioned we're in the integration space, so connecting directly to your largest payers, that kind of thing is interesting subject matter to us and hopefully to you, and would like to work with you on that. And then one of the basic presumption of all this is this bottom bullet here. We're looking for better patient satisfaction, so better customer service, if you will, and customer loyalty, and doing that through the reduction of administrative tasks and improving workflow. Basically, make things happen more seamlessly, and the tools are now there at our disposal to do that sort of thing. Now, we don't want to overlook the IT group. We just looked at operations, but one of the things we speak to clients about is the impact of HIPAA 5010 on applications. So if you're going to move from an old transaction standard to the new, we'll talk about timeline on that in a moment, but what can you do with your legacy? A lot of people are looking at retiring that legacy, consolidation. We could easily interact with, in this case, some hospital information systems that are mentioned there, or EMR systems, and there's a lot of collaboration that can be done from these vendors and our partner Microsoft and ourselves and our solution. So we take into account, for example, in the next slide, HITECH and funds available from that. Excuse me, I hit the wrong button. So what we want to ask is what tools and licenses are already in place for this, and that's the key question and the theme you're going to hear about. So we'll talk about SharePoint and other offerings from Microsoft that we've capitalized on together with their life sciences team. So finally, in sort of terms of the problem statement, we want to take a look at what are C-levels in hospital and provider organizations worried about. So we're faced with this 5010 timeline and the requirements, and where's the budget for that? Okay, and dealing with, for example, HITECH requirements, and if you're not familiar, that does fall under the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009, or ARRA, and so we have very good information on how to gain access to that funding. So the Health and Human Services and CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, are putting this HIPAA standard change out there, but at the same time, in a complementary way, offering access to the money that might be required to do it. And then finally, want to again make that linkage between better processes and improving not only reporting capability to meet reporting requirements, but actually improve hospital rating. And I think that would be important to everybody, and we think of that in a fashion that it's there and it's available, and why not take it all into consideration at once? So that's it. Bottom line, how do we pay for this? While at the same time really trimming costs. So we think there's an answer to all this, and it's both from human capital and workflow and technology all together. So why don't take these initiatives and look at better processes? Okay, so workflow evaluation, system consolidation, these are things where we can bring technology consulting to the table, but also we'll speak a little bit about later in the presentation, after Tom does the live demo, about business analysis and our ability to side-by-side do assessments to see just what sort of path lays ahead in terms of legacy retirement, let's say, and what to do about mainframe systems in the larger organizations. And of course, the HIPAA gateway concept and dealing with the trading partner community as a whole, so the health plans, payers, and so forth, and labs and this sort of thing, tying them all together. It's part of what this technology underpinning does. And then that will actually be the subject of the third webcast 2 weeks from today. We'll talk about trading partner synchronization. So the other very important point here, bullet number 3, patient involvement and communications, and hence the little diagram of somebody on a scale. that is just huge. And we hear that coming all the way from the White House, basically, that we each, as consumers, have to take some responsibility and bear a bit of the burden in changing our behavior and get from reactive healthcare to proactive healthcare, for instance. But something really serious for all of us to think about, and we're in the loop. We got to stay there and concentrate on it. Now, I did want to make that linkage. I've been thinking about the patient satisfaction point of view with some hospital C-levels, and it all ties together as far as we're concerned. There's a common denominator between leveraging technology, achieving efficiency, and ultimately, it's all about the patients. So don't want to get away from that idea that patients are, at the end of the day, what matters. So I've alluded to the HIPAA 5010 compliance issue. To jump into it more specifically, I want to take a look at the implementation timeline. And this is a rendering based on a project plan that's been put out there by WEDI, and this is the vendor aspect of it. So in parallel to this, there's a whole thought process going on about how we can help you and how you can achieve your compliance needs. But it rests on our shoulders to figure out how to deliver. So we did, in January of this year, receive incentive from Microsoft, specifically their life sciences group, to build on their technology and have ready the demo you're going to see today. And so we, thereupon, have become consistent with this idea of change impact and what does this all mean beginning in Q1 this year, and then solution development around Q2 to Q4. So we have stage one of this demo out, and Tom and I are making plans with our colleagues at Microsoft to prepare stage two, which probably is just a couple of weeks away. Now, one of the things, too, that is very important, we look at testing alongside our clients, and we'll speak a little bit at the end about an offering to do some pilot and testing and experimentation with our clients. Just a slight different visual angle on this timeline, and we're currently in negotiation with a number of people with what we do is delivered through a statement of work, and it's an implementation of technology. So we put proposals as SOWs in front of our clients, and we're looking at those today and underway with some of the development. But of course, 5010 is pretty darn new. So we're at the early part of this curve, but we well understand the technology. Tom specifically has worked on the 5010 and ICD-10 code sets that are delivered with Microsoft technology that was released in April, and we're currently in a beta program for implementation to take advantage of those deliverables, that schema and ICD-10 technology in the hands of customers today and ready. And all that would lead to a compliance schedule, if you look at those bullets further down. Now, we want to talk a bit about the solution itself, and based on Microsoft technology. And most importantly, I wanted to ask the question, think about whether that isn't actually readily available within your organization today. So there are aspects of this solution, such as SharePoint, that many of our clients are either evaluating or, in quite a few cases, rolling out globally. So there's almost no end, really, to how you can leverage a user interface. So that's what we're bringing to the table today. So let's take a look at the life cycle of a claim, just to give you a little overview. What Tom is going to talk about is that connection between provider and sending a claim to the health plan training partner, and then receiving it back. And we'll see what happens in one sort of snippet of that overall process, but here's a high-level view in this slide of each of the HIPAA transactions that take place. Now, we'll take a look at that small aspect here, but please keep in mind that all those schemas are available. We're ready to go with the whole scenario. and happy to bring it to you. And we worked out a use case that Tom is going to talk about where the EDI document comes in, the actual electronic transaction and an associated document, and then needs to be routed, transformed, and in this case remedied as part of the process of getting the claim resolved. And one of the things, the themes underlying this that I know Tom will talk about is the idea of first pass claims validation, let's say, through a HIPAA gateway, and not having to do this sort of remedy. So getting better and better at these processes. And if you're working with a familiar user interface such as this, you can get quite good at your job. Make sure all the information is there upon submittal, and then over time, just gradually reduce the first pass failures, if you will, and then cut costs. And there's measurable return on investment through that we'd be happy to speak to you about. And now I'm kind of setting the stage for Tom, and one of the things that I just mentioned, do you have existing SharePoint licenses? This wheel, if you will, we've broadened out the business forms, InfoPath, and MOS is, of course, Microsoft Office SharePoint services. And it's that we chose to leverage specifically to bring you this solution. And it's that idea and that sort of creativity and thinking that brought us together with Microsoft Life Sciences Group and led to what we've done here. Okay, and I'm just going to talk a little bit more about some of the underpinning of the technology, and we do try to keep in mind the blueprints and available standards in a broad fashion, and work closely with the Microsoft Life Sciences team, as you see here on this slide and the following, a connected health framework architecture, which is a design blueprint available to us, and it enables us to bring to our clients a fresh look at how all these systems interplay and where the consolidation and efficiency of implementations can come from. And I want to also mention to this group, and I'm speaking fairly fast to get to the demo itself, but the slide deck is intended as reference material and intends to tell the whole story kind of front to back. So we will forward this to you the next day or two in PDF format. And so if I do skip over anything, it's really just intended to be something we can ship to you and save you a little note-taking today. But as you see now, BizTalk Server, SQL Server, and we're soon to focus on SharePoint, and that's what we want to call your attention to. And again, thank you, and I'm going to give it over to Tom, and we're going to look at the product live. And when he's finished, I'll come back and tie together a few of these concepts, and hope you enjoy. Tom, over to you.
Thank you, Bob. I'm Tom Cantor, a principal healthcare consultant with New Desic, and been doing this for a few years. And while the live demo comes up and switches over, a little bit of interesting information. I've heard this problem from both ends of the scale, working recently at a very high, large healthcare provider for quite a while on a contract. And also, my mother actually works as a submitter for small healthcare companies in her city. And I've heard the issues that are involved with this from a lot of different directions, and trying to hear that the overarching administrative simplification model certainly is a strong interest of mine. And also, well, I certainly want to make my mother happy, but also patient satisfaction is also very important in all of this. And so what we're going to do first is, what we have here is a HIPAA claim center. And so at the administrative center for your revenue recovery system, you want to increase the rate at which your claims are accepted by the insurance companies. And so the idea here is that we're going to do a pre-pass before shipping these out to the upstream provider, so that the likelihood of them being accepted on first pass is improved. And so I am looking at, as we see here, the HIPAA Claims Center, Better Health portal, and I am a manager for a group of claims investigators who are going to review failing claims that we believe, due to validation errors before we send it out, will be incorrect. And so, first off is, as the administrator, my job is to then inspect the claims quickly and then turn them over to one of my two investigators, or possibly take action on them myself. And in here, you'll note when I open this up, claims that have failed, we estimate about, my understanding is about 60% of all claims fail outbound validation. As they arrive in my work queue, I'm able to view some initial information about the claim, having to do with the name and what program they're assigned to and the dollar amount and various other pieces of information, and the fact that it's not assigned to anyone. And from here immediately I see two things. One is that the claim amount is fairly large, and the diagnosis code is missing from the claim. And diagnosis code is one of the critical things that, of course, we have to submit. So I'm going to open the claim up and assign it to my high-value claims investigator. And in here, this is a standard CMS 1500 form, a little older model, but basically the form can be tuned and modified based on the environment. And I'm just going to scroll down through the claim. And as I can see here, certainly the diagnosis code is missing. And so I'm going to submit this, send this over to Chandra, who is my high claim value investigator. And then I'm going to go ahead and save that out. And while that's going on here, of course, there's a lot of plumbing that goes on underneath this. And we're trying to present this, show the parts that the plumbing normally is of little interest to most people. It's more about how I can do my job day to day. And so one interesting note here is that CMS 1500, we certainly can handle that both side by side from inbound 4010 and 5010. There's nothing unique about the CMS 1500 that makes it require the 4010 or 5010. So whether or not this came in via side by side deployment while we're doing the transition to the full 5010 system, as a investigator, I don't have to know the details of that. So I have returned, and I am opening the claim up from the viewpoint of Chandra. And as the claim opens here, and we're going to review a little bit of the plumbing in a few minutes. As we can see down below, we've got a couple of Vista admin consoles in the background, and we're going to actually process claims from inception. But it's Chandra here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a 6YC diagnosis code. Needless to say, has no actual value that relates to anything, and our validation level is simply, at this point, just that the valid diagnosis code exists. And that is sufficient for this claim. I've called the surgical center and confirmed that. And I'm going to go ahead and resubmit that for processing. So now that's going to get picked up from the submitted for reprocessing queue by Vistalk. And we're going to process that, pick it up, validate it, remerge it back with the original claim that has information that the CMS 1500 is not concerned with. We're still submitting. And then while we're waiting for that, let's go ahead and look back at the HIPAA Claims Center, because there's a lot of features in here that we have that are very interesting, at least to the average manager. First off is I can see in an overview who has claims assigned to them, how many do they have, which ones are assigned to them, and so on and so forth. Notice I have currently 3, they're unassigned. Rab Levi has got 3, and Chandra's got 5. And so when I'm deciding on who may work on the next claim, I can easily look in here and say, okay, go ahead and open up this claim, and I will probably assign the next one to Rab for that work. And then returning back to the main, we can look at all the claims by date. And needless to say, I will want to encourage my team to work on older claims or high-value claims. So currently we have a $423,000 claim, and certainly we want that to be processed very soon. So these are simply various views into all the pending claims built using standard SharePoint functionality. Now, historical claims, we're going to look at all the processed claims by date. Now, notice all of these are in InfoPath format, so I have a tremendous amount of detail directly in the view. And then returning back, we've got by service date, claims, processed claims by the program and ID. So 2 sort orders. If we scroll over here, we're going to go back to the new unassigned claims. I've also got the ability of changing to one of my other views directly from here. So I have a lot. This shows me some of the built-in views and so on and so forth. Now, once a claim is submitted, of course, we have a process claims queue, which we can review, and these are all in CMS 1500 format, but I want to see historical claims in the original format. And so I'm going to go over to the claims store, which is a standard SharePoint document library, a report center. And in this, I'm able to submit claims. As these claims go through, I'm submitting these from BizTalk for historical purposes. So each one of these claims can be viewed as each claim is updated. It's going to be historically archived, the previous version, and each version is going to be stored in sequence as it's corrected and modified and changed by the users. In addition, over here, you may notice that this claim is on hold. It's currently being reviewed for legal purposes, and so the legal team has placed a hold on this claim, which means that no one can modify or edit that particular document and will reject updates as it's coming in. And in the Record Center, I can also add tasks to the workflow in order to have people review those. And then going back to the unclassified records, these will eventually be routed to appropriate folders in the record store based on criteria that the business users will select in the future. So let's go back and let's actually process a real claim all the way through the back-end system. And so first off, I want to, here we have a layout of outbound messages, some good messages to test with, and some bad messages to test with, and the folder where these documents will be picked up from the BizTalk engine. So first off is, let's drop in a good claim in here, and after a moment or two, it should be picked up. And should be dropped directly in the queue. And there it is. And if we open it up, we have our claim. So this was detected to be past all validation to the system. Now, Let's take a bad claim. This is a well-known claim to us, Mr. Shepard. And I'm going to drop it in the processing queue. And needless to say, that will not arrive in the output folder. So let's have a look. Now, I can certainly have SharePoint notify me when new unassigned claims appear. And notice here, I've got this notification. Now, because SharePoint is designed to prevent overwriting of documents, I've got a pending claim for Mr. Shepard already here, and so it generated a random number at the end to prevent overwriting of an existing claim. I'm going to go ahead and open that up. We'll go through the workflow again. Needless to say, this is going to be a high-value claim. And diagnosis code is missing from the claim, 3EF. I'm going to submit for reprocessing. Out EDI. A little bit of time uploading it to the SharePoint portal. Do that in a few seconds. Sorry for the pause. While we're looking at this momentarily, first off is the trading partner management system built into BizTalk. So here we have a couple of parties. There's no limit to the number of parties that we can manage in here. And new in BizTalk Server 2006 is the ability to deeply manage the party configuration. And we're going to go ahead and bring up the party management. And I notice that my message has processed. So let's go to Out EDI. And then, too many steps going on here. 1 second. Thank you. Seems to be responding a little slowly here today. The idea here behind this system is a simple starter that allows us to show the connection between the provider, the doctor, and the health plan, the insurance, and trying to make that connection operate smoother. There's many different solutions to that, and of course using this as one is definitely an option. So in here we are looking at EDIFACT for European. We have the ability of managing batches, so we can match batch transactions. We can deeply set the interchange processing, the level of ACKs, both the TA1 and the 997 can be automatically generated. And we can extend the EDI type. Now, as a receiver, we can do much of the same. We define how it's set up and sequence processing, whether or not this is production data. And in here, we can show that we have the ability to define the side-by-side processing of the 835 and the 837 in the same system. And pretty much the rest of this is pretty standard. Allows us to define how, who, and what they're going to process and the GS4 segments. A lot of technical details with that, but there's very deep functional capabilities within the EDI engine. And in here, in the group hub, we're going to have a look at track service instances. And the pipeline did send the outbound message, so I can look at very detailed information about all of my message. And in fact, I can look at the details about how the message was sent and the internal content. I am going to go ahead and turn over to Bob, but please feel free to add any questions at the end. We went into a lot of detail here, and certainly there's a lot more to the system and the capabilities beyond what we can show today.
appreciate it. So obviously in an hour-long format, there is a great deal that we touch on but can't go into extreme depth on. And so we want to tie it together and see if what we've brought across here leads to some follow-up discussions. And the main point is, Tom was showing a middleware transaction system, as well as what I was speaking about prior to that. A lot of it happens through an easy-to-use SharePoint portal. And Tom got into kind of the guts of it, so he realized that we can look at individual claims at a very detailed level, get to them through something simple like this claim center. But it's a certain role within the provider organization that needs to understand this and be able to interact with it. So fear not, the background is mostly an IT function. Foreground is claims expediters in various roles, again, addressing revenue cycle management. And so I'm going to talk just a little bit more about the technical, so bear with me. And what we've got here is a EDI process bus. And the notion here simply, and again, follow-up discussions would make this far clearer, but just to touch on it, the trading partner management and validation engine, workflow, and then claims archiving and search are the four main balloons there, if you will. But everything across the organization can be addressed through this sort of messaging system. And there's a unifying factor that happens here. This is not a replacement, but rather an augment to legacy systems. And we're finding things that fall into about three categories with our clients. So there's legacy that will not change. Some mainframe adjudication and that sort of thing on the health plan side, for instance, will remain. And then there are systems that can be consolidated, and then the trading partner side, to and from provider pair, can be optimized. And that's ultimately what we're talking about here. And nevertheless, it is an intricate process and does take some time, but we can define that, clarify that, and again, provide to people a statement of work which is explicitly what will be carried out, and that is a statement of work. It's a set of requirements that we collaboratively define. Now, EDI processing, Tom spoke enough about this. I think in the live demo, but wanted to share a couple things. And so that what's behind this process bus is a notion of web services. So you can have a best-of-breed scenario, leverage legacy. If you want, ambitiously maybe look at things like either better interaction with the clearinghouse, or in some cases, maybe look at the return on investment for even replacing a clearinghouse. And of course, very important, this third major bullet here, the fact that many organizations are going to gradually come over to 5010, and depending on the health plan, they may convert at various times. So side by side, if you will, or hybrid type processing of claim transactions could be very important. We're highly aware of that. And then Tom made some simple allusion to, he alluded to the fact that MOS, or Microsoft Office SharePoint Services, has a records center, and wanted to make sure that the benefits of that, again, because you may own the rights to this already, so why not leverage it? And that's what people have told us, is that for various reasons, some legal, if you will, they need to have the individual claim in its original state, which you heard from Tom and how that's done, and then flag various claims that may portend, future difficulty, and then easily search them, based on metadata related to that individual claim. And that's the bottom line. With efficiency, we talked about workflow and saving money, cutting costs, and that's where it comes from, is people not having to spend time, just as with an electronic health record, not spending so much time looking for paper. Let electronic systems do this for you. Same thing applies very much to claims. Now, ultimately, this brings you back to this sort of happy place, if you will, given the graphic, that can't we make things simpler for ourselves? How long do you stay with a legacy system that is actually slowing you down? And then of course, we looked at a claim remedy scenario, but on the other side, that validation is going to occur. And the better the outgoing message is refined, the better the whole system is going to interoperate. And then, which leads us through that better workflow to top-notch return on investment and getting the most out of your every dollar. Now, it's important, I think, to understand that although Neudesic handles the technology and the business analysis and can engage with you on a broad spectrum of areas of work, it's also important for us to participate in an ecosystem, if you will, which we do, and it's between us and Microsoft and a couple of other key hand-picked industry leaders that are principal vendors in this ecosystem. And Tom and I know them well. Our whole team, the teams have gotten together. There's very good chemistry between all of us, and it's a very synergistic effect in that the validation can be done with a world-class system from Edifex, their X-Engine, and that will be part of stage 2 of the demo that I mentioned that will be ready in a couple weeks. And so they're a software vendor that works with us. And then in terms of the business side and gap analysis, your source for HIPAA standards and guides and all that sort of thing is Washington Publishing Company. And then because they know HIPAA inside now, being literally the authors of it, publishers of it, we work with them to provide the widest possible range from pre-technology and vendor selection and gap analysis and impact analysis right through to delivery on the implemented systems. So some very key points there about how we work with people. And that brings us to what I promised earlier was a means to proceed, how to step forward, your path, so to speak. And there is a notion of a HIPAA 5010 package pilot, again, which would be delivered through a statement of work, but that gap analysis, and then some initial claims processing to allow you to get testing underway. And that is key, right? Identifying vendors, making selections, and then beginning that testing process. And that will keep our clients on the right timeline. And so being selective about those, just the most necessary transactions, let's say 837, 835, and then looking at the mapping between 4010A1 and 5010. And then you saw today the SharePoint visibility to individual claims, very apparent, I think, through the demo. And then behind the scenes, as Tom referred to it as plumbing, we have a business rules engine there that allows routing and transformation and various functionality to be loosely coupled with the process. Very important how these things are architected. More on that if we speak to you and directly, and we want to encourage that. Let's follow up today. And now the SharePoint Record Center is optional in the pilot. I think it's very powerful. We'd like to bring it to your attention as we did today and further, but is an adjunct to something you may have. You might very well be archiving successfully today. So with that, just want to tie a couple of threads together and then see if we might be able to assist with any questions. Just in summary, again, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate your interest today. And we hope that we've at least given you an inkling of what HIPAA 5010 compliance entails, some of the things you need to look at, how we can walk through that with you. Hopefully the depth of our expertise in this and our commitment to it. I said that Tom and I started on this path about a year ago, and actually going back 6 or 7 years, we've collaborated on solutions like this, and that's what brought us to this point of tight working relationship with Microsoft that we're in today. And would be happy to engage whatever your readiness may be. Happy to start an implementation for that matter, but keenly interested in working with you through the process of evaluating. And with that, I'll give it to Dion, and she'll let us know if we have any questions from the audience.
Perfect. Thank you both very much for the presentation today. We do have a couple questions that have come in, and once we get through the questions, we also have a couple of polling questions for the attendees today. Real simple, straightforward 3 questions to give us feedback and make sure that our Nudesic webcast series is continuing to provide useful content and information for everybody. So that being said, one of the questions that has come in is asking, what do you estimate would be the appropriate target dates for providers to begin testing, given the current time frame that is setting requirements?
Okay, thanks, Deanna. I'll grab that, and if you have something to add, please jump in. So, yes, the published timelines were mainly around health plans and vendors. And so the fact that plans will be receiving both 4010 and 5010 for a much longer time, and whereas a provider may be able to put, decide on their own dates and begin to put 5010 transactions out there, provided that, their health plan and payer is set up to receive them. So we're thinking that because there's sort of a low friction starting point that we offer with readiness assessment, and certainly a couple of hours or an on-site quick assessment and overview is available at no charge. And so, we assume that if it isn't underway today, it's probably a good thing to get on calendars for August and September. And on one of the slides here, I did present that probably a good idea to be, if you follow that, then probably by November, December, you should be in a mode where some initial testing could take place, but certainly want to do that testing no later than January.
Okay. And another question is, if we move forward with this, will an upgrade to my billing system be required?
Okay. Again, Tom, you probably would have a better view of that, but it's a bit of a gray area. I mean, that's a good question. So it isn't necessarily required. It depends on the technology of that billing system, and whether, for instance, it can function as a web service, or perhaps we can put a web service sort of wrapper on it. Do you agree, Tom? Can you add anything?
Well, what this gives you an option to do here is choose whether or not you're going to upgrade your billing system. If the billing system vendor is not going to be able to do their own upgrade to support 5010 directly, then you can certainly become 5010 compliant early on and wait for that to occur. Also, if you're working on funding or working on perhaps a larger migration at a later date, then you could again defer that to a later time. So this certainly gives you an option for upgrades versus becoming a must to a can't and do later. So that is a good question, and the answer is it gives you choices.
Okay. And I think we all love to have options. So how can a hospital assess their impact and where that impact would occur?
Good question also. So billing, obviously we heard the question about billing systems. I think it affects overall operations. Therefore, I think it, can, in a way, in some extent or another, infect every department and every employee. But at any rate, concentrating on the transactions themselves, it's really the largest number one impact is on legacy and what is there today. And we've spoken to people who have systems that predate HIPAA, for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a rather radical, anywhere from kind of reskinning on the surface to tearing something out. So, yeah, I would say on legacy applications.
Okay.
And the point is on legacy applications is many of the legacy applications are written in programming languages that are not common to the market these days. And so by using a system somewhat like this or planning this kind of migration well, you can optimize those resources. You can have them concentrate on the systems that must be changed.
Okay. And then also, how is this solution delivered?
Well, we are a consulting company. We would work with our clients to see what Microsoft licenses might be in place, distinguish, what might be required for purchase. We don't necessarily resell licenses, except in the case of CRM and our patient action solution. But so it's basically delivered as an implementation through a contract. We can produce either a proposal or a statement of work, and then the delivery actually comes directly from the tasks within that statement of work agreement.
Okay. And lastly, these requirements are really being mandated. And I guess what's the cost to an organization of not moving forward in the appropriate time frame?
That's a good question.
What happens?
Yeah, there are it's a carrot and stick kind of scenario as I see it. So the feds are providing access to billions of dollars through ARRA. I think one of the numbers lately that I've seen is $34 billion. There's a kind of a rigid process to get access to that. And then one approach is that meaningful use of this type of technology is evidenced by providers. They can get an increasingly large percentage of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, the money that they get in return gets progressively larger, and then the reimbursement for practices or delivery organizations that do not comply, it decreases. So it's kind of like taking some year to pay Paul, you might say. And then maybe the net effect is probably cost is probably rising for the government the whole time. But the idea is that it's a little bit of a zero-sum game, and so the progressive people will make more money and will be compensated, and in that fashion, combined with the fact that you can actually apply for money, these two things together. And we can, there's quite a bit of detail online, but we've obviously pulled it down and it's available to anybody who would like the details.
Okay, very good. We don't have any other questions right now. Again, I want to ask a few polling questions. We'll go ahead and put those up really quick. The first one, obviously, we want to know if this content was helpful for you and for your business. So we'll give everybody just a few minutes to go ahead and respond to that at this point. So if you all wouldn't mind going ahead and doing that. And I'm wondering if I have it done incorrectly. Is anybody able to touch on this at all?
On my system, it doesn't click.
Yes, it says the polls are closed. And so what I need to do is get this taken care of. Bear with me one moment. And we may not ask polling questions today. So my apologies, though. This is...
well, that's an alternative, but we're going to contact everybody as follow-up in email, and again, the PDF will be available, and we encourage, in any fashion, getting back to us, and feedback would definitely appreciate it.
Here we go. It's the magic right-click functionality within Microsoft. So now we have the polls are open at this point. So again, my apologies for that. We could definitely, if everybody could, please simply respond to this, and then we'll move through this process fairly quickly. And again, like Bob was saying, we're going to follow up with folks, and again, making sure that the information we provided was useful. And if there is any way that Nudesic could provide assistance with you and your organization, we want to make sure we're adding value to what everybody has as far as these requirements are concerned. So thank you very much, everybody, for participating in that question. The next question, we want feedback on the presentation today. If you could please provide that. We definitely want to make sure the presentations we are giving, again, make sure we provide value and make the best use of everybody's time. So if you could please go ahead and respond, that would be great. Okay, thank you. And our final question of today is, of course, if you would be interested in a HIPAA assessment, please definitely let us know. We'll be happy to reach out to everybody that is interested. Okay, perfect. And again, thank you so much, everybody, for today. We do appreciate it. And at this time, Bob, do you have any, Bob or Tom, or any final thoughts?
No, thank you again, everybody, for your attendance, and Deanne for coordinating, and great demo, Tom. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody, very much. And you may, at this point, disconnect. Thank you. All right, guys. Good job.